web at Jim Trippon CPA at taxcpahouston.com, 713-661-1040, or taxcpahouston.com. Now, Stephen and I yesterday were talking about taxes and what's going on, and there was a story that
Does
came
Stephen
out.
pay taxes?
Stephen does not pay much in taxes because he's got his act together.
Okay.
He really does.
Yeah, that's what we'll say.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the ticket.
That's a ticket.
One of the claims that was being made ahead of tax day, and this was made by the administration, it was made by several people publicly, well, people this year, we're seeing 95% of American taxpayers paying less taxes. In other words, 95% of Americans got a tax break this year.
In fact, Obama himself, in his State of the Union address last January, said that they have provided tax cuts to 95% of Americans.
So we wanted to ask you, Jim Trippon, tax CPA extraordinaire, is that true or no?
Yeah, well, it's okay. Now we're looking at the truthometer, and the truthometer says it's nonsense. It's political speak, okay? Now, one of the ways...
It's funny that you use that term, truthometer, because the article had a truthometer next to it, and it was like all the way to the right in the high green.
Okay, so the newspaper you're referring to, because I saw that story too, is the St. Petersburg Times in St. Petersburg, not Russia, but Florida.
Okay.
But if you look at the editorial board of the newspaper, it might as well have been in St. Petersburg, Russia, because they take a very presidential approach to the truth as they report it.
Got it.
Okay? Now, the deal is this. What they call a tax rate, it's kind of like going back to Mr. Clinton, read my lips, or, I did not have relations with that Monica Lewinsky. Okay. It depends on what you talk about is a tax increase. So in the funny language of Washington, okay, out here in Texas where you say what you mean, what you say.
Sure.
If you increase what you take somebody's out of their pocket for taxes, we call that a tax increase out here in Texas, okay? Not in Washington.
Right.
Okay? In Washington, what they're doing is they're allowing the Bush tax cuts to expire. Okay? So what that means is at one time you used to have on interest, if you had interest savings or if you had dividends incomes, you might have had to pay taxes as high as 39.6% on that income. And under the Bush administration, they cut it down to either 15 or 20%, depending on where your income level was. Well, they're allowing those tax cuts to expire. But that's not a tax increase in Obama speak, right? That's just the end of a tax cut. It's not a tax increase. Well, out here in Houston, Texas, where they actually reach into your wallet and take more money out of it, when the government reaches in my wallet and takes more money out, that's a tax increase. I don't care how you want to spin it. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And they're putting all kinds of spin on this. Like they're counting different types of tax credits. For example, the first-time homebuyer tax credit as one of the tax cuts that they're providing to Americans. And so it's kind of a play on words, in my opinion.
There's no question about it. And a lot of what they're talking as tax decreases or tax relief basically are welfare programs that are being administered by the IRS. Because if you pay, let's say you pay $1,000 to the IRS for taxes, and they give you back $1,000, okay? That was no tax increase. It's just a refund of your money. But if you pay $1,000 to the IRS and they give you $3,000 back because they've instituted a new welfare program, that's not a tax cut. It's not tax relief. It's just the IRS is administering the welfare program, and they have a lot of these new welfare programs that they're spinning out as part of the Obama remake of American society, and it has nothing to do with income, and it has nothing to do with taxes. It's just that they're sending out checks from the IRS, and they're calling it a tax relief when it's really just they're dispersing a new welfare program in many cases.
Well, and it's like we talked last week, it's the difference between a tax credit and a tax reduction, and those are two different animals.
Well, and you have to look at it. A lot of Americans don't pay income taxes. In fact, really the model for what they want to use in the United States is what they've got in California right now, which, by the way, California is bankrupt.
Yeah, you see how well that's working.
Yeah, and you look at the California style of taxation. Even the governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, started 2010 with a federal tax lien against him. Even the governor of California hadn't paid his income taxes. So, I mean, this is your model for fiscal responsibility. But in California, you've got 40 million people, 39 million people that live there, and 52% of the total income comes from 147,000 residents. Okay, so you've got less than 0.5%, paying 52% of the total tax burden. And what that does, although it may sound exciting to some people out there in, I don't know, East Bernard or someplace, the thing is that the bad thing is it absolutely destroys, I'm talking about Walter that called last week from East Bernard. It destroys incentive. It destroys initiative, because as soon as the government says, if you work hard and make money and create value for somebody else, we're going to slap you. People don't like to get slapped.
Well, no wonder people are leaving California in droves, too.
And the other thing that ticks me off about this 95% number is they're making it sound like that means 5% of Americans didn't get tax cuts, probably trying to imply that it's the wealthy, when in fact it's just different tax credits to different groups, like the first-time homebuyer credit and then this tax credit, and they're not really pinpointing an income bracket. They're just throwing out different tax credits.
If you've got an oops, if you've got a question about, oh, I might have missed something on my tax return last week, give us a call. Jim Tripon, Tax CPA, is in the studio at 7139-650-650. Stephen K. and Brent Clanton at your service on the CNN 650 Morning Show.